Max Verstappen's clash with George Russell in Spain has sparked a lot of debate, and the way it unfolded really caught everyone off guard. Looking back, it didn't seem like a simple racing error. It felt more personal. The moment Max turned into Russell's path wasn't a gradual move or a close call. It was sharp, intentional, and it caused immediate contact that damaged Russell's front wing. What's even more surprising is how Max carried on as if nothing had happened, leaving fans and insiders buzzing with questions no one from Red Bull is answering. The penalty Verstappen received, 3 points on his license, is hardly severe considering the incident. But what's more interesting is the broader discussion this has reopened about how much power top drivers have and how the governing body, the FIA, handles these kinds of situations. Verstappen is now just 1 penalty point away from missing a race, but is anyone really expecting that to happen? Given his status, many wonder if he's become too important to face a real punishment. Watching the replay makes it harder to see this as a racing accident. Verstappen clearly saw Russell approaching from behind in the mirror, and just as Russell tried to pass on the inside, Max turned in abruptly, making contact. From a race perspective, it's a murky area. Defending your position is normal, but this felt calculated. The timing and the way it happened suggested something more than just aggressive driving. Earlier, Verstappen had been told to let Russell through, but when he noticed it was Russell behind him, his approach shifted. Yielding wasn't on his mind, at least not for George. This incident also shines a light on the growing tension between these two drivers. Russell's strong qualifying performances and assertive moves on the track, combined with his pointed comments on the radio, have been building a quiet rivalry. Spain was where this simmering frustration finally boiled over. It's not unusual to see clashes like this in F1. Rivalries have exploded before, like Hamilton versus Rosberg or Vettel versus Leclerc, but this one feels different. Verstappen isn't an underdog here. He's a 4-time world champion and the undisputed leader of Red Bull. Yet, despite his achievements, he acted like someone with a chip on his shoulder, as if needing to prove a point. After the race, the paddock waited for an explanation from Red Bull, but official statements were scarce. Behind closed doors, however, things looked different. Inside the team debrief, Verstappen quietly admitted to his mistake. There were no cameras, no public apology, just a moment where he accepted it wasn't the right move. This kind of admission is rare from him. He's usually reserved about showing regret in public. But even this subtle acceptance didn't calm the ongoing debate, because shortly after came the FIA's decision. The governing body handed Verstappen 3 penalty points. That brings his total to 11, just 1 shy of the threshold that would force him to miss a race. Pause for a moment. One of the sport's most dominant figures, the face of modern Formula One, is just 1 incident away from suspension. And that's where the tough questions start to appear. Why did the FIA only assign 3 points? Why wasn't the incident examined more thoroughly, especially with the clear video footage and radio messages? There's a sense among some fans and experts that Verstappen's standing offers him protection others wouldn't get. People are already drawing comparisons with legends like Ayrton Senna and Michael Schumacher, who faced strict penalties for actions that were less serious. Senna was disqualified for a smaller offense. Schumacher lost race wins and points for his missteps. Sometimes even entire seasons were shaped by their punishments. Yet Verstappen, with 11 points on his license, remains free to race without real consequences. Pundit David Croft summed it up well. If anyone else on the grid had made this move, the conversation would be very different. This isn't just about Verstappen or Red Bull. It's about the whole system treating drivers unequally. Where does this leave George Russell? His reaction was measured, without angry outbursts or accusations, but the frustration was clear. He turned in quite aggressively, Russell said calmly. But I guess that's racing. Or maybe it's something else. Politics within. The sport. Beneath the surface, there's a growing feeling that Verstappen's dominance while well-earned, is skewing the fairness of competition. He wins, he leads, he controls the story. And when mistakes happen, the consequences seem to shift. Even Verstappen's own words after the race felt unusual. He admitted the move wasn't right and shouldn't have happened. It wasn't a full apology, but it was close. An acknowledgement that this incident meant more than just a racing moment, that maybe he crossed a line. But if the stewards don't take stronger action and Red Bull doesn't push back, what message is being sent? Everyone in the paddock is watching closely, from drivers to fans. The idea that every driver should be treated the same under the rules is one of the few clear principles the FIA maintains, especially when things get complicated. Yet, when a top driver like Verstappen receives a warning while others might face race bans for similar actions, that principle begins to weaken. And this isn't just about Verstappen alone. It's about what happens next. If Verstappen picks up just one more penalty point, whether it's from a collision, exceeding track limits, or even something minor like blocking during qualifying, he will face an automatic suspension for the following race. Imagine that headline: Red Bull without their lead driver, a grid missing its biggest star, all because of a moment in Spain that no one wanted to fully address. Formula One has always been full of politics, but rarely has such a significant event been met with such silence. The paddock is holding its breath, wondering if Verstappen wasn't Verstappen, if he drove for a different team, if he wasn't a multiple world champion, would this situation have played out the same way? More importantly, what will happen the next time he's in a tight spot on track? If you think this was a one-time issue, you might want to reconsider. Verstappen has seemed on edge this season, showing signs of frustration on the radio and reacting more sharply in wheel-to-wheel battles. The pressure is mounting as teams like McLaren and Ferrari close the gap. For the first time in a while, Verstappen isn't just cruising, he's fighting harder, and that kind of pressure can affect decision-making. Red Bull is well aware of this. Behind the scenes, controlling the narrative is becoming a challenge. They cannot afford another situation like 2018, when internal conflicts cost them dearly. Losing Verstappen to a suspension or worse, seeing cracks in his confidence, would be disastrous. But the FIA also faces a dilemma. The FIA finds itself in a difficult spot. If Verstappen crosses the line again, they will have no choice but to hand down a race ban. This won't be about politics anymore. It will simply be following the rules. And when that happens, the backlash will be intense and unavoidable. Right now, it feels like a slow-motion standoff. Verstappen under pressure, the FIA cautious with every decision, and Red Bull carefully managing their public image. Meanwhile, the rest of the drivers watch, waiting to see what happens next, fully aware that the next penalty could change everything. What makes this moment even more significant is that Verstappen isn't just close to a ban, he's also close to breaking the illusion that Formula One treats all drivers equally. This matters for more than just appearances. It affects the sport's credibility and legacy. If the FIA allows Verstappen to get away with another borderline incident, it undermines their authority across the entire grid. The stakes are higher than just Verstappen's reputation. Young drivers rising through the ranks, from the likes of Oscar Piastri to Logan Sargent, are watching how discipline is handled at the top level. If the rules bend for the elite, what message does that send to those still fighting for a spot? In Formula One, the sport is at a fragile point. This could redefine not just the current season, but also set the tone for future generations. If Verstappen escapes again without serious consequences, the system's integrity weakens further. But if the FIA stands firm and imposes a ban, even on its most celebrated driver, that would be a bold statement, possibly the most significant we've seen in years. That's the real story here, because the next move Verstappen makes and the following judgment from the stewards could reshape Formula One's future. Interestingly, Verstappen's competitors might not actually want to see him banned, at least not just yet. Every mistake he makes offers them a chance to gain ground in the championship. Each penalty, every small slip, provides them with talking points and a psychological edge. They want to challenge him not only on the track, but also in the minds of fans and commentators. A vulnerable Verstappen is more useful to them than one, completely out of the competition. However, that window is closing fast. One more serious error, and the FIA will have no room left to maneuver. They will be forced to prove the sport still has rules that apply equally to all, no matter how big the name attached to the car is. The upcoming races are no longer just about points or podium finishes. They are about the sport's legitimacy and fairness. Whether the stewards can demonstrate that penalties apply to everyone equally, even in the heat of a tight title fight under a blinding spotlight, will shape the entire championship. Here's the harsh truth many hesitate to say openly. If the FIA hesitates now, they risk losing more than just credibility. They could lose the respect of the paddock itself. What's the point of pushing limits if the boundaries aren't enforced? Midfield drivers already adjust their style around top-tier racers because they don't trust the system to protect them fairly. Now imagine what happens if they truly believe the FIA won't treat all drivers the same way. It changes the entire dynamic and could lead to chaos on and off the track. For Red Bull, the pressure to control this situation is growing unbearable. They are walking a tightrope, not just competitively but politically as well. One wrong statement, one poorly handled incident, and suddenly this isn't just about Verstappen anymore. It becomes about the culture within the sport, about power and control. What unfolds next could echo far beyond a single weekend or season. It might define how Formula One handles dominance and how honest the sport is willing to be when facing uncomfortable truths. This moment is about proving whether Formula One can enforce its own rules, no matter whose name is on the car. The question now is, will Verstappen face consequences like any other driver would? Or will his status protect him once again? The outcome will send a clear message, not only to Verstappen but to every driver on the grid. Some believe that letting Verstappen slide too many times damages the sport's integrity. It risks creating an environment where top drivers can break the rules with less fear of punishment. That could lead to an unfair playing field and growing resentment among competitors. At the same time, Verstappen's rivals have their own stakes in this drama. Some may prefer to see him struggle with penalties instead of being completely out of the fight. A weakened but still racing Verstappen gives them chances to gain points and momentum. They don't just want to beat him, they want to show cracks in his armor. Yet, the clock is ticking. Another penalty point, and the FIA will be forced to act decisively. This may mean suspending the sport's biggest star, something never taken lightly. The coming races aren't just battles for the championship. They are tests of fairness and authority in Formula One. If the stewards hold firm and apply the rules without favoritism, it could strengthen the sport's credibility. But if they hesitate, again, it might weaken trust and fuel criticism. The decisions made now will influence not only this season's outcome, but the future culture of Formula One. In the end, the situation revolves around fairness, consistency, and respect for the sport's rules. Verstappen's next moves, and how the FIA responds, will be watched closely by everyone, from drivers and teams to fans worldwide. As this tense situation unfolds, one thing is clear. The sport is at a crossroads. Formula One must decide if it will treat all drivers equally, regardless of their fame or achievements. This is about more than just Max Verstappen or Red Bull. It's about maintaining fairness and trust in the entire championship. The pressure on Verstappen and the FIA will only increase with every race. If Verstappen stays within the rules, the focus will shift back to racing and skill. But if another incident happens and the FIA steps in firmly, it will send a powerful message that no one is above the rules. For fans, this adds a new layer of drama beyond the usual speed and strategy. It challenges the sport to prove it can handle conflicts and controversies openly and fairly. The choices made now will be remembered for years to come and could shape the future of Formula One for the better. or worse. So, as the season moves forward, keep your eyes on Verstappen, the stewards, and how this story plays out. It's more than a fight for points. It's a test of the sport's values and integrity. And in the end, that might be the most important race of all.